Hello and welcome to another episode of the Space Update, part of the fantastic Total Space Network. Coming up today, we'll be talking SpaceX, Rocket Lab, Virgin Orbit, and a whole host of other space news. I'm your host Ryan, and joining me today is...
Hi, I'm Mikko, the host of Deep Dive Fridays.
I'm another space nut. I just sort of linger around on these chats.
Let's get started on the news, guys. We're going to take a slightly different approach on this episode. No topics as such this week. We're just going to be generally chit-chatting away about all the latest news. So why not? Let's just kick off today with SpaceX and this fantastic Starship. There's so much going on with SpaceX and Starship at the moment, and the Falcon 9s and everything. Like I say, the Falcon 9s just launched another batch of Starlink satellites earlier last week. Reused the booster and set the record of 7 successful launches and landings. A fantastic achievement, if I do so myself. We'll soon see the booster reuse in double figures very soon. But my question is, when do you think they'll actually clean them up?
I think, let's say, around 12 flights or something like that. And about the flight number 7, now SpaceX is at the same reusable level as Blue Origin had on their new Shepard rocket, and the next one will be hitting that record.
SM5 also had some major upgrades according to Elon on Twitter, so we're going to see an old legend fly, I guess.
Yeah, SM5s has actually potentially been used for the lunar lander. We saw bits of it, like the nose cone and everything being painted white, and there was rumours that SM5 was just going to be used to either the mock-up of the lunar lander, or they were going to reuse it just for the hell of it and just test it to the maximum, because it's essentially an old model. So why not use it when it's got hardware there to use at the end of the day?
And not only hardware, but flight-proven hardware as well. Yeah,
definitely. And we've seen very recently SN9s just being fully stacked and completed, and be alongside SN8, maybe, hopefully, if everything goes well with the hop within the next week for that. The days for that 15k hop are constantly changing at the moment, because I believe they're trying to get a static fire or two in before they actually go for that.
I've been hearing rumours that they might not conduct a static fire. Like, there's rumours circling.
Yeah, there's been rumours like left, right, and centre. Really, are they going to do a static fire? They're going to do the header tanks, lower tanks, or what? But it's all up in the air at the moment, I think.
One of our eavesdrop listeners, Jay, who does the administrative work here at Total Space, he's saying they're not doing static fires anymore. And then there's something supporting that from the NASA Spaceflight forums from Nomad.
Yeah, I've seen little bits floating around, but like I say, it's all guesswork, isn't it? This is just, for people that don't know, it's essentially a research and development program, so we get to know nothing at the end of the day other than purely guess and interrogate Elon on Twitter.
And then we do have these amazing dedicated people sat out there in Boca Chica with cameras and DSLR cameras taking amazing shots and stuff. You know, we've got this dedicated sort of gathering following the Starship program. I think it's almost like a new era.
Yeah, definitely.
When was the last static fire? Was it about a week ago? And they fired up SN42. From what I understand, they test fired 42, and they haven't done one since, have they?
They test fired. Testing my memory now. They test fired middle last week, I think.
I think it was about the 24th.
Yeah.
See, saying the last one was all 3 Raptors firing.
But for some reason, they've done some minor tweaks to it, and they had to do they were going to do a static fire again for some reason, but don't know why.
It was his 4th static fire. Framric just got the link there. Well done, Framric. Quickest to the punch.
Jay's normally quicker. No, I was interested. There's an awful lot of chat across the various forums about whether they needed to do any further fires, including the header tank test, or whether that was it, because I think they've already done one with a header tank, because you saw the frost line forming, so they've obviously pressurized it up. And I just get this feeling from all the different social media platforms that there's a little bit of pressure from Elon of just make it so. But what's holding them back now? Is it the weather? Is it the just getting everything right? But you've got about 3 starships in the queue ready to go. So
I mean, ultimately, what we've got to sort of remember is that SpaceX are innovating. Never before have we been able to see test flights and things of this nature. It's usually conducted behind closed doors and in secret and out off on behind cordons where we can't get cameras and stuff. And when you go down to SpaceX Boca Chica, you can almost touch it through the fence if SpaceX security weren't there.
Yeah, literally. Everyday astronauts down there and a few other guys and all sorts right now. Hopefully waiting for that hop wherever it happens, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, who knows. But Elon said earlier, literally a few days ago, earlier on in the week, come SN15, there'll be major updates, whether it's internal or just the general design, who knows. The big major factor that he was saying on Twitter as well as that big major update on SN15. He tweeted out that Starship legs are one of the hardest problems. Externally mounted legs require shielding, which adds mass. Wider stance adds mass. Shock absorbers add mass. That said, we need better legs. So that's the main issue that they've got at the moment, is those landing legs by the looks of it. And obviously maybe that'll come in at SN15, who knows.
Yeah, or maybe SN15 is the orbital one.
Could be, because we haven't seen any as such with the full shielding, and then they need to figure out how they're going to shield the fins as well.
It's an interesting puzzle to have to solve, isn't it? Getting the world's largest second stage to orbit.
Yeah, definitely. The thing with the fins that Elon's struggling with is usually with any other vehicle, it's a solid surface usually. If you imagine a capsule, it's just a circular capsule, if you like, or whatever a shape. And the shuttle, it was a fixed wing thing. It was barring the little ailerons and everything else on the wings. But Starship, essentially, the fins on that move completely. So they have to figure out how to put the shielding on just the bottom side and the edges, plus the joining gap that's between the fin and the main body. And they're going to have to somehow stop the air flowing through that little gap between the fin and the body, so the heat doesn't bypass the shield and start burning the upper side of the body of Starship as well. So it's that'll be another task, I think, when it come SN15 on all the orbital tests.
Yeah, it's definitely needs some work.
Because I think they'll probably conquer the landing on some of the lower hops, maybe the 15k eventually, might it'll hop, but when it comes to the orbital re-entry, I think that'll be a whole different kettle of fish, so to speak. I think you might quite possibly see one burn up in the atmosphere due to losing a flap or two during re-entry and things not going quite right, because re-entry is a whole different, like, massive amounts of stress on the body of the Starship.
Yeah, that's very possible.
And I'm still curious about this lunar lander. We've seen bits of it here and there, but we haven't seen anything announced as such, or what we're going to see is in a basic mock-up or potentially a full mock-up, interior and exterior.
What I can tell you about the lunar lander is the worm will look much better on the Starship than it currently does on the SLS.
Yeah, definitely.
Would be very interesting to see the inside plans for the Starship.
Yeah, many people are mocking up like really like luxurious interiors and stuff like that, and there'll be chairs and seats and lockers and this, that, and the other. But usually on these kind of things, it's a military come space thing, and they need to use every inch of space or millimeter of space, if you like, for cargo. So it might not be as luxurious as everyone may think. It might be purely a small seating area for X amount of people, and then the rest is just boxed off for purely as much cargo as it can possibly carry.
Yeah, or just have a bit less mass so you don't need as much fuel to get out from the moon.
Do you think Maezawa's hopes of doing Dear Moon on a starship are still on the cards in 2023?
Definitely not. I think it's too early because it takes years to even approve a booster. If you jump back to, even like the Falcon 9 and the Atlas 5 and everything, it took quite a number of years for that to get both of those get approved. Do all the abort tests and everything, and when it comes to abort tests on Starship, that'll be a whole different thing altogether. But whether they do the Dear Moon thing on a Dragon capsule instead, or something like that, or a bigger version of it, who knows? I don't know.
Well, the current Dragon can be retrofitted to fit up to 9 people, if I'm not mistaken, Miko.
No, actually not. It was supposed to be for 7 people, but actually they have made some changes and it's not possible anymore. Because when they splash down, the seats take the splashdown position and they really don't have space for more people.
Yeah, you've done an episode on that, Miko, a little while ago, didn't you? So if anyone wants to learn a little bit more on the Dragon module and everything else, make sure you check that earlier episode out that Miko done in one of the deep dive episodes. We've seen a lot of development with the Super Heavy booster as well, haven't we? We haven't seen anything as such with the stacking or anything, but we've seen a hell of a lot of the parts being constructed.
What's your nickname for it? Because I know everybody calls it something different at present until we've actually got something together.
I just call it the Super Heavy booster for now until it gets named something else.
Because people are saying like SNB01 or like there's Booster 1 and there's several paradigms that people have given it.
Yeah, it's in the chat there, in the Discord chat, BN1 Jay is saying. I think that's Jay and a few people have corrected me before. It's not SN, it's BN, booster number 1.
It's exciting to see it come alive because ultimately what we've seen so far is just second stage development of the entire Starship development program. And like you correctly said earlier, Ryan, this is an R&D project. Like, this is the foundations of an entire rocket architecture. This is the equivalent of the Falcon 9 Grasshopper in 2010, 2011, when they were doing Falcon 9 landing development, and this is just a second stage for now. When that booster starts to come alive and they start to build infrastructure to be able to launch that, that's on the cards over the coming years, and that's exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I can't wait until they actually start doing the Super Heavy booster. It's essentially going to be the full height of a Falcon 9 rocket. It's just going to be absolutely insane once it's done. And I think key thing to keep in mind, before the Super Heavy booster can actually launch or even do any kind of tests down at Boca Chica, SpaceX need a new license from the FAA. The agency said that the new vehicle falls outside the scope of the existing final environmental impact statements, or the EIS, if you like. And the record of decision for the launch site requires additional environmental reviews under federal law. So that may put a little thorn in Elon's side on getting the Super Heavy booster pushed along.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sometimes you think that those environmental assessments are just to slow them down, but yeah, if they launch the booster from there, it's going to be very loud and dangerous. But maybe they can try to build a offshore launch pad or something.
They're right next to the Gulf, aren't they? So they could just use it as a cast-off point, because like you correctly said, these environmental impact statements are no joke. When you're looking at it through a camera from 4 miles away that's several £1,000s upwards, and you've just got this tiny scope, what you don't realise is it's surrounded by nature reserves and there's quite a lot of breeding grounds and stuff there. These big boosters going up as regularly as it's going to need to be for 1,000 Starship launches, it's really important to keep that consideration. And like you're saying, offshore platforms, and I know everybody in the community is nuts about offshore platforms. That's for a good reason. It's because you can't launch to orbit on a regular basis from the current site that they're using. You see it more as a cast-off point to these golf-based launch platforms at sea.
And we all remember what happened to SN4, and for that to happen to a fully stacked Super Heavy booster and Starship, that'd be a bit of a disaster, considering they are actually quite a lot of, although they're right by the coast there down at Boca Chica, they're not too far from actual little hotels and little villages and everything down there. They're a lot closer than what you think.
Yeah, just a few kilometers away.
It'd be like the old nuclear testing days again, where the towns would just slowly get deserted around and stuff if it wasn't a carefully considered process on how the development goes down in Boca Chica and how they get the hardware out of there. And it's no secret that offshore rigs is spoken about a lot. There's a lot of disused oil rigs in the Gulf, and I know I spoke with Benno about this way back before it became this huge thing, but offshore launch sites are important, to avoid disaster.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't remember the exact total of the thrust of the Super Heavy booster once it's complete, but I know it was in the 15 to 7 million pounds of thrust, or even more than that. I don't even know. It's just absolutely insane. It's just more than the old Saturn rockets and everything.
Yeah, I think 15 million pounds of thrust is about right. I think it's around 70 meganewtons.
Earth-shatteringly loud, not just loud.
Yeah.
There's rocket loud, and then there's Super Heavy booster loud. But think about the noise dampening system you're going to need for a booster of that size as well, because currently there's water dampening systems to absorb a lot of the shock from the audio that the engines produce. And think about the water suppression system you're going to need for a booster of that size, so it doesn't blow a hole in the earth every time it takes off.
And Elon is thinking of dropping the flame trends completely.
Which is just absurd.
Yeah.
Not for us. If we want to see it, obviously we'll get a nice big flamey takeoff, but Over the past few days, Peter Beck from Rocket Lab has been sharing some quite unique footage from Electron's last flight, return to sender. One from the stage separation and a few others from booster re-entry. Some fantastic views never before seen on Electron, so make sure you go and check out that on social media. What do you think of that, guys? Seen some quite unusual footage, and Peter Beck's never really showed any the stage separation from the actual inner side of the rockets. We've only ever seen SpaceX do that before.
I'm loving the fact that they managed to capture sound through the hardware itself. It gives us a real perspective of what stage separation sounds like directly through the hardware, and that's exciting to hear, in my opinion.
It sounded absolutely bizarre. They're like the lump kind of thing, and then the second stage just floats off.
Yeah, that was great to see, and I think the sound waves came with the rocket exhaust to the booster.
A few guys in the Discord channel saying a few claimed the sound was fake, but it turns out there was enough gas to transmit the sound and everything, because obviously it's at the edge of space and everything like that. But that quickly got debunked by the looks of it.
Yeah, once I'm rich enough, one day if I aspire to get enough money, or if somebody funds a crazy idea, I want to send a bunch of flat earthers to the moon and back. Just debunk their entire life.
But as well, we saw some fantastic footage from the Chinese rocket, some unique views from there, from the flame trench, and from the actual launch tower as well as the rocket took off.
Yeah, it was great footage.
I think the best view is on the launch tower when you just saw the rockets. I think it must have been at the very top of the launch tower when you saw the rockets just ascend up, and then you just saw the pure blue flames just flying off past the camera. That was just unbelievable. Just seeing that fly off, and the flame trench. Obviously, everyone loved that, and are asking Elon to do the same with the Falcon 9 launches now.
Yeah, that would be great.
Virgin Orbit is preparing for a second flight test of its Small Launcher 1 rocket on the 19th to 20th December. Their launch window for that is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. carrying a set of NASA-sponsored CubeSats. This one is essentially an air-launched rocket dropped from a 747. Bit of an unusual way of launching a rocket, but you can see it definitely work. The previous launch was unsuccessful due to some sort of sensor fault back in on May the 25th, that one.
Yeah, I think the rocket motor ignited for about 10 to 15 seconds after it shut down again. So it was mostly unsuccessful, but they got a lot of data. So what are your guesses? Will they reach orbit with this flight?
I mean, I think it'll be successful. It gets there part of the way through the 747, flying up to a high altitude, then drops from the 747. But it's just gaining that vertical momentum to get into orbit and gain enough speed to achieve orbit and everything else.
Yeah, I think also that they would reach orbit this time. At least I hope so.
And what the reusability scope of it is, I'm not really sure. Obviously, you're still paying a lot of cost to refuel the 747 and stuff like that and everything else. But I think essentially this one's, in a way, starting off from scratch. It's not going to be reusable at first of any kind, but whether it will be in the future, I don't know. But I can't see it being a project that you can essentially scale up, really, if you're relying on another form of transport to actually get it halfway there.
Yeah, that would be difficult. You'd have to create a bigger airplane.
Or a supersonic one.
Yeah.
Which I believe Virgin are partly initially in the talks with it doing. They've obviously got their other projects going on, but that's more public commercialized little crew vehicles. So that's how much the satellites will get integrated with that, I don't know. But obviously the launcher one's purely a launcher for the big commercial companies launching CubeSats and small sats into low Earth orbit.
Yeah, definitely. Hope you're enjoying the show. Consider joining for our next deep dive episode on Friday, where we have a special guest you might know.
Hi, my name's Tori from the YouTube channel Overlook Horizon, where we talk about space and some high-altitude weather balloons. And I'm excited to talk with Miko on the Total Space Network podcast a little bit later.
And now back to the show.
And jumping over to some more news with Ariane Space. Had a few teething problems with a few rockets lately. Failures, cancellations, setbacks and everything. The Falcon Eye 1, actually, because of the failure on that, the Falcon Eye 2 actually got moved to a French Soyuz rocket, which incidentally actually got scrubbed earlier on in the week due to, I believe, bad weather or some other technical problems.
I think it was the weather.
Yeah, most likely. A lot of bad weather floating around over this way everywhere really lately, isn't it? It's that time of year again.
Yeah, definitely.
But I do wonder what's happening with that Vega rocket that they're having problems with, I think, isn't it, Miko?
Yeah, this time, or the last mission that was unsuccessful, I think it was the fourth stage, and it had 2 electrical connections that were put in the wrong place, so the computer couldn't handle the thrust vector control or something like that.
Yeah, it essentially shut down, or just essentially couldn't control itself properly and just give up, which is unfortunate. But it's all it takes is one failed connection, as you've seen with Ariane Space, as you've seen with Rocket Lab, and quite happily possibly happen to SpaceX. It happens to everyone, however big or small you are. It's just one of those wonderful things that you just have to go through and learn from and move on, really.
Yeah, I think this won't cause too long of a delay because they already found the problem and it was a human problem.
Yeah. And just running through technical problems as well, we still got the dreaded NROL 44, which is backed up since the dawn of time. And because we've been talking about nearly every single episode. And then we've got NROL 82 or wherever it may be now. I think that's penciled in for I believe it was penciled in for January, February, early next year, but whether there's problems with the pad still, whether there's problems with the rocket still, whether there's some other problems going on, I don't know. There's some serious problems with that whole system as a whole, by the looks of it. Hence why it's supposedly getting retired next year, which Tori told me quite a while ago, randomly, and everyone's jumped on it. It's got 5 flights left. Whether it'll do those 5 flights, I'm half predicting it might not actually do them. But Tori also mentioned a little nugget of information that the NROL 44 cannot be transferred to the Atlas 5 because of the size and the weight. It's specifically designed for the Delta 4 Heavy, so it cannot be transferred to another rocket that ULA have. So if they don't sort out the Delta 4 Heavy, you're going to have NROL 44, NROL 82, and the other NROLs that are supposed to be launching on the Delta 4 Heavy all backed up. And I think the only other option would be, if they don't fix that rocket, they'll have to literally give it to someone else to do it. And that person, people will obviously be SpaceX, whether it can fit on the Falcon Heavy, worst case scenario, I don't know. But I can imagine it will, given a larger payload fairing.
Yeah, I would think with the larger payload fairing it would work, but with the current payload fairing, probably not.
We've seen bigger fairing proposals from SpaceX, haven't we? They initially tried to buy the bigger fairings.
Yeah.
They were declined for that, if I'm not mistaken, because ULA didn't want SpaceX grabbing a hold of them.
I believe it got through eventually, as far as I'm aware, because they won some contracts as of late that actually include using the larger payload fairing and constructing the vertical payload bay, so they can actually, rather than laying the rockets down as they currently do and then lift them up, they're going to construct a vertical payload bay, essentially, as we see down at Boca Chica with the high bays and everything. So with all these contracts that SpaceX and ULA won, some of them specifically ask for the payload to be integrated vertically. So they're going to have to do it sooner rather than later, whether they do it now or they do it later on. They're going to have to build that high bay to vertically integrate military satellites and everything else onto the likes of the Falcon 9 and any other rockets that SpaceX get eventually.
Yeah, I think the first launch is in early 2022. And SpaceX was paid $316 million for it to build the vertical integration building and the larger fairing.
And it's just going to look immense with that larger fairing on, I think. It's already a great rocket, but to see it with that larger payload fairing just makes you think how they're going to recover those larger payload fairings, because they'll essentially be a boat in themselves. The payload fairings are already pretty large and expensive to recover and everything, but those payload fairings are literally double or triple the size, I'd say. I always imagine in my head that like you just stick a couple of wings on there and just turn it into a little prop plane of some sort and just fly them back. That's my little theory. But how they're going to recover those fairings, they're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah.
And jumping over to some other news, got Hayabusa 2. It's not far from home now. Left the asteroid Ryugu about 300 million kilometers away, or 180 million miles, if you like, from Earth. That was about a year ago, and is expected to reach Earth and drop a capsule containing precious samples in Australia on around about December 6th.
Yeah, it's great to see Hayabusa finally getting back to Earth and we can do some good science.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of, this is one of the first of many great sample returns. We've had a few in the past, but none as fruitful as the ones that have been recently as of late. Hayabusa 2 being the first of many, really. Hopefully we can find some really exciting stuff.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sample returns, did you already hear that the Chinese Chang'e 5 just landed on the moon a few hours ago.
Yeah, literally a few hours ago. That's really exciting. That, I mean, obviously, when this goes out live, this as we record, this is a day or two ago, obviously. So most of you may or may not know by now, but it finally made its way onto the surface of the moon, gathering some samples, and it'll be popping back with some more samples of the moon material and regolith and everything.
Just amazing, really. I know a lot of people are easy to criticise China and other developing countries and other space programs, but it's another win for humankind. It's another exploration for science. It's another sample return, which everyone's precious, really. You know, these things are in demand at present. Imagine the abilities this is going to open up.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, there's a lot going on at the moment. It doesn't have to be these large landers. It can be little landers, hop over to the moon, grab a handful of samples, bring it back, and we can analyse it and assess it, whether it be China, Russia, America, Europe, Britain, eventually, or wherever.
Yeah, and China actually has pretty great success rate on moon landings. They've landed all 3 they've tried. For this Chang'e 5, they actually are going to start drilling for the sample really soon, and I read that they would send it back already in a couple of days.
Yeah, and we've got other missions as well coming up. There's quite a few little missions and everything. We've got the Capstone mission as well. One of the guys in Discord reminded me there. Got those and a few others.
I mean, it's exciting. I think congratulations to China, and I'm hoping for a successful sample return. It's exciting. Hayabusa as well. Just the amount of samples that are coming back to Earth, the amount of science we're going to learn about the universe is great.
And last but not least, wanting to end on a positive note as such, but not quite. The Arecibo observatory, just later today on Tuesday, it's actually collapsed now due to the damage sustained in the past weeks or so.
I mean, it's been an ongoing problem, hasn't it? It was an aging piece of equipment. I think maybe they could have kept it more, but like the general vibe, and I know a lot of people would probably agree that it's become more of a tourist attraction. Like, naturally, it's important for a lot of the SETI work, and it's been a pioneer, and it has advanced us. And it's just a shame to see it go, really. Like, it's just been a horrible year all round, and this just feels like a bad way to end 2020, losing the Arecibo radio telescope.
Definitely, and a lot of the maintenance was neglected. It was just left too little, too late. By what some reports have been coming out and everything. As with anything, if you don't look after it, it will just rot away. But it's also worth bearing in mind that this is about 40 to 50 years old, if my memory serves right. So it is at the end of its lifetime when you think about satellites and technology and everything else, although albeit it's been improved over the years.
Yeah, Scott Manley did a really good video on the Arecibo telescope. That video isn't necessarily relevant if you're looking for today's events, but it's definitely relevant if you're looking up for a timeline and you know, up to today's events, then definitely check the Scott Manley video out.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of in-depth videos that Scott Manley does and everything. But it's a bit of a shame that they lost that, whether they'll repair it or anything for it to be a bit more of a landmark thing, or whether they'll just leave it be as it is and be a shrine to the history. I just get pictures in my head of if they just leave it and let nature take its course kind of thing, just let everything overgrow and just leave it as it is. It'll just be quite interesting, but then you might get the odd few people rummaging in with it being such it can be quite a dangerous site, obviously, with it being quite damaged and corroding.
I mean, it is a genuine shame. I know I've spoken to a lot of people about it today. I watched it as it unfolded on Twitter, and I was devastated, really. I'm crushed. You know those places that are on your bucket list, places I want to go that are really cool? The Arecibo radio telescope is definitely one of those places, isn't it? It's on everyone's bucket list of awesome places to go.
Definitely. And you see it on all the movies and everything as have passed over the many years and everything. Various James Bond films and other action-packed films running across it, around it, and inside it, or wherever it may be. It's an iconic place that's going to be not lost to history, but well remembered in a way.
I mean, a lot of people are saying the Chinese fast telescope is a really suitable replacement, but the fast telescope apparently isn't retrofittable with radar, so we do lose the radar ability for a dish of that size.
Yeah, it's obviously a difference made for a different purpose within reason, so obviously it won't carry on the same technology.
It was used for things like asteroid detection, early warning detection for asteroids, and things like that. I know, as Framric was saying, there was SETI at home. If you'd like to expand on that, Framric, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, it's something I remember from the really late 1990s when distributed computing was just starting to get off the ground. You had a number of projects that said, well, rather than hire one big supercomputer, we'll ask people with their home computers to get some data packets and process them in their spare time, like in screensaver form. There was protein folding, and I signed up at the time to do SETI at home. You got a download of a packet of data from Arecibo. You saw it processing on your computer. I've got some images that we could obviously link to, but I can post some in the Discord. And literally you saw each pulse being analysed, each incoming signal being analysed on your own desktop or on your screensaver. And you were always hoping that you were the one that actually saw that wow signal, the sudden data coming in. So it was a huge effort, one of the largest distributed computing networks at the time. And a lot of that was Arecibo data, and it's a great loss.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for popping on, Framric.
I'd definitely love to see those pictures in the Discord if you've got them around, Framric.
Yeah, I'll pop some in there. There might even be some animations I can upload or link to. If I do that, we can obviously post them in the YouTube side of the Total Space podcast.
Fantastic. I'd absolutely love that.
All right, guys, I think we'll wrap it up there. We'll be doing a special episode later in the week once we finally see serial number 8. Fingers crossed, do the hop, whether it gets off the pad, whether it does the flop, whether it does the land, who knows. But we'll be doing that, I believe, on the deep dive with Miko, I think.
Yeah, as long as it happens, the hop.
Fingers crossed. What are your bets, Miko, on how far serial number 8 will get? We'll just finish up on that.
Well, I think it's going up to 15 kilometers, but it's going to crash somewhere, probably the ocean.
Yeah. I think a launch will be reasonably fine. I think it's when it's going to do the hop that'll be the question, whether it'll be a smooth hop or whether it'll be a very rapid stall, and I think it might just stall and tumble. It won't be an elegant flop. They might miscalculate it and it might flop forward a bit too far and it might just end up tumbling down. That's my theory, and then a big boom at the end on the ground.
Yeah, ErgX Space has quite a few demonstrations for that. Pick one there from there.
Yeah. How about yourself, Not
Real number 8 is a good pathfinder. It's going to be exciting. It's going to drop into the water, I believe. If it's going to rud, I'd much rather it head for the drink so they can at least retrieve data from it than it just blow out all the data from the sensors that are on board. I know it's heavily connected, but there's still a lot of sensors that get recorded for later date. There's really good footage that's on board cameras that isn't necessarily streamed over and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we'll go into depth in whether it'll splash in the water or whether crash, boom, whatever it may be, along with Miko on the deep dive episode. Thanks for joining us again today, guys. I've been your host, Ryan, from the Space Update.
I've been Mikko, the host of Deep Dive Fridays. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and your favorite podcast platform. Also, if you like what we do, please consider supporting us on Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/totalspace.
I've been another Space Nut.
A big thank you to you and everyone subscribed over on YouTube, and to you guys listening at home on the podcast, in your car, or wherever you may be. Catch you all next week, and have an awesome day.